What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to the Straight Facts YouTube channel. We are still always the sports show that educates and entertains, but we got to do a little off-site video today, and I'm joined by my guy, Matt Valdovinos at MV Scouting on Twitter, the Straight Facts NFL draft expert mainly. But we're bringing him in because, man, I had to get on the horn with you, Matt, because the NFL landscape got shaken up a little bit with what we thought was the Von Miller trade. And then this past week, Odell Beckham Jr. clears waivers, just mind-boggling to me. And then the Los Angeles signs with the Los Angeles Rams to now make them probably one of the scariest offenses, if not the scariest offense in the NFL. So I had to bring you in because we're going to break this thing down. You know what we do. We're going to break it down by the numbers, but then we're going to really see just how good that this Rams team can be now that Odell is here. But, man, thank you for joining me, man. Always good to see you, bro.
Absolutely. I'm always excited to come talk ball. I mean, it's a huge thing that went down, not just the Odell, but bringing Von in too. I think the Rams really did, as far as you look at the contenders in the league who went out and bettered their team towards the end of the trade deadline, and no team did it more than the Rams. And I think that's
right.
It's kind of fitting of what they've done. They've always been one to, go after it, whether or not there's a lot of risk involved. They put a lot of incentives into the Odell deal. They offered him an actual contract as opposed to just the vet min that Green Bay did. So I do think that there's, they're very much into it. They're very much trying to get after this ring to go win what they weren't able to, since putting this all together in 2018. And I think it's really going to start, showing its value here. And we'll talk about why with the Odell stuff in a little bit, but I think the Von Miller one's another one that's kind of underrated that people aren't realizing, like, they added to their defense and their offense. It's not just they went out and got Odell, which kind of overshadows it. But I do think the Von Miller thing, it's good that we're going to, we can point that out as well.
Right. Well, let's get right into it, man, because that's the first question that I kind of want to unpack. I kind of want to get into that really quick. Does this make sense for both sides? And the obvious answer is going to be, yeah. Why wouldn't the Rams want Odell, and why wouldn't Odell want to go to the Rams? But really, in the scope of Sean McVay's offense, where Odell is in his career, does this truly make the best of sense for both parties? Because Odell could have gone to any team he wanted to, presumably. So is this the best option for both parties?
I think for Odell, he definitely chooses the best option. I think when we were first kind of deliberating who was going to go where or who was really going to be in on the Odell, I think the Packers were kind of the team that everyone saw as like, this has to be the best fit. We've always talked about it.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
Certain, that's what I thought.
And they were, and it wasn't even that an Odell didn't want to play. It wasn't even that he didn't want to play there, but they just did not offer more than a vet minimum. And so Odell made, not just a decision to go play for a contender, which they both are, but he also went to go join a high-powered passing offense. I think Aaron Rodgers and Matt Stafford like number 1 and number 4 in passing yards this year. And then on top of that, a Matt LaFleur and a Sean McVay, a bright offensive-minded head coach. The issue is in Green Bay, Odell, he's going to still want his bag, right? He's not a vet minimum player by any means. And so I think the Rams did him a little bit, they respected his name. They said, all right, here's this $4 million base plus incentives. The better you do, the better we do, the more money you're going to make, the more money we're all going to make, right? And I think that's why it made the most sense for Odell on that side. And then getting into the schematics of it, originally I was kind of not in love with this because I think, we were talking about the Rams receivers. Cooper Kupp's not, his role does not get shifted at all with Odell prior to the Robert Woods injury or not. I did not see Cooper Kupp, them touching it. I thought maybe Robert Woods loses a little bit. And then the big person who's going to, lose some traction in this Rams offense would be Van Jefferson, their wide receiver 3, who they drafted out of Florida last year. Really cool guy. Met him at the Senior Bowl. Very, very good route runner. And so I was a little bit worried that Odell was just going to come absurd Van Jefferson, who was having a really, really impressive sophomore year. He's very consistent. He was very, very good for the Rams offense. And so with the Robert Woods injury, it brings this new kind of dynamic where, okay, well, maybe you're not taking Van Jefferson off the field because when, Robert Woods was healthy, you're bringing Odell in and you're saying, how are we going to make these 4 people work? Now it's Odell can kind of fit what a lot of Robert Woods does and it's kind of lucky. Obviously, it's not lucky for anyone that Robert Woods got hurt, and we hope that he stays, we hope that he gets back to it as soon as possible. We're praying for all that. But the Odell kind of sliding in, and now it's, okay, there's an obvious hole of production that they needed to fill. I think Odell's going to come in. I think Sean McVay is going to do a lot with Odell that we didn't see in Cleveland. We didn't see very often in New York. And maybe these teams let him throw the ball every once in a while, but we're going to see Odell line up 20% of his snaps out of the backfield or motioning out of the
Right,
backfield.
right, right, right.
Right, that's a lot of what Sean McVay loves to do. Maybe we'll get a couple, carries per game. So that's something I'm very excited with. And so I think with the Robert Woods injury, it does start to make a little more sense, even more just how he's going to be utilized on the field as opposed to trying to figure out what they're going to do with all four. It's again just kind of a three-headed.
I'm exactly where you are with that. When it happened, I said, Matt Stafford, one, is a quarterback who loves to share the ball around the field. So you presume the more weapons he has, the better it can be. But there's only one football, and these are high volume, high target receivers. It's not like where you have a situation in Tampa Bay or a situation in other teams that have a lot of receivers where you have receivers who are okay with like low volume targets and high yardage plays. Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, who are okay with 4 or 5 targets a game as long as everybody's winning. This is a guy in Odell Beckham Jr. who wants double-digit targets. He's said that. So you go down the Rams wide receiver room pre-Robert Woods injury, and you have Cooper Kupp at 32% of the targets, 103 this season. Robert Woods had 22% of their targets,
which is
70
insane.
of them. Van Jefferson has 46 targets, 16% of them. Tyler Higbee, another person who gets the ball, 46 targets, that's 15% of them. It's like, where does Odell fit into this scheme? And no one likes to lose a dynamic, one of the best number 2 receivers in the league like Robert Woods. But the Robert Woods injury made it make sense to me. There's Odell's role. He doesn't have to now go into I'm only the over-the-top receiver, right? Because I think before the Robert Woods injury, that's a lot what he was going to be. The hole that we lost with Deshaun Jackson. We wanted that to be our deep threat. He's too old. That didn't work. So we had to let him go, and Odell fell in our lap. And he is a deep threat, or can be a deep threat, that Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods, possession receivers, aren't always going to be. He can take the top off the Maybach. They're not really going to on a drive-by-drive basis. But that, I don't think that's what Odell really wanted. I don't think he just wanted to be the deep threat. That comes with 4 or 5 targets a game, and they're all 70 yards down the field. You're sprinting to do so. Now he's able to just go right back, into that Robert Woods role, or if you wanted to slide Van Jefferson up and put him maybe in the slot, or give him more creative ways like those sweeps, those end arounds, like we know Sean McVay can do. Maybe you could do that, but that's where I see him going now. That's why it makes most sense to me. And we never want to say thank God for an injury. You never want to say that for an injury. But to me, it just made the puzzle go together better.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a void that Odell can actually fill. It's not just trying to put him on top of what was already a very structurally sound offense. Yeah. And now you're trying to put him on top of that.
Yeah, and it's not to say that their offense is going to be better per se, right? I still think the best version of the Rams offense is when all 4 of these guys are healthy and on the team, right? It was figuring out how to make that work that was really confusing. And that was, would take some time in the middle of the season. And so I do think with that, it's a little bit more of just a easier transition for Odell with a hard Z roll. This is what you're going to do. You have this proof of what Robert Woods is doing, as opposed to trying to carve out this whole new offense in the middle of the season, which is, bring him back next year, and you can do that in the offseason. That's
right. You have time to do that, but to do that on the fly is hard. And
especially in the NFL.
Right. And Odell and Robert Woods are a little bit different receivers, but I do think they have the same archetype where very good route runners, can run every route in the tree, are willing to go over the middle, like very good possession receivers. So I think.
And when you're a player like Odell, you kind of just
fit in any role.
They'll give you a ball.
That's
as long as your quarterback's not Baker Mayfield, you should be fine.
I always got to get me the ball. That was from the Rams side. From Odell's side, like from the Rams side, it didn't always make sense to me. From Odell's side, I was like, absolutely, man.
Go play with Matt.
You absolutely get to go play with Matt, and you get to play in an offense that's built around passing for one of the first times for you in your career. When you're with the Giants and you got Saquon, the offense became not just a running offense, but it came predicated around Saquon. Saquon gets the ball first, we pass out of that. You go to the Cleveland Browns and we have the best 1-2 punch in the NFL. It's going to run out of them, and we pass out of that. This is only the second time in Odell's career, third time in his career, that he's played in an offense that's ranked top 10 in passing. The other 2 times are 2014 and 2015, coincidentally, the 2 best years of his career. So this is a home run for him. And you go get yourself spread offense, a creative
Exactly.
offense, and go get
And a
yourself the
quarterback
ball.
that's going to give him the ball in
Yeah.
tight spots. I think that was we saw Odell's dad blow up on Baker, and he had points. Like there was video evidence of, specifically against the Steelers is the big one, where Browns fans were so upset because they were arguing, they were at war over whether it was Baker or Odell's fault. And there was like a very obvious, Odell's running, it's like a post, but it's more of a seam straight up in between the hashes. The Steelers have a 2 safety look, and it's a very obvious read for Baker Mayfield. If you hit him when you're supposed to hit him, he might run between them for a touchdown. Worst case scenario, it's like a 40-yard reception. But Baker hesitates, waits, and then throws it up. And people are all like, oh, well, why doesn't Odell come down with it? Because he doesn't want to get laid out. And I get that, right? That's a business decision, whatever. Maybe you'd love to see him make that guy. But Odell's not a huge dude, right? We've seen him make these insane one-handed catches. But we rarely see him go up, grab these one-handed catches, and get laid out by someone and just pop back up like it's nothing, right?
Right. He is still 5'11",
exactly
210, 215. Like he's still not the biggest dude in the world.
Yeah, and so when you're waiting on those windows, you are putting your receiver in a spot to get hit. That's what happens. You see that on slants, on crossers. What Matt Stafford does that Baker Mayfield doesn't is he's aggressive with the ball in tight windows. And so if you can launch that, and I think I could be wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure Matt Stafford has the most attempted low percentage throws or contested completions.
Yeah, gunslinger. He gonna put the thing out there.
Exactly. He'll put it on you. And that's going to do well with Odell. So I just think that as far as him, it was, I want to go get a chance to ring chase, and I want to get a chance to play with a quarterback who's going to get me the football. So when he talks about Aaron Rodgers and Matt Stafford, those are guys that do that.
Maybe not just my quarterback. Think of these offenses. These are creative offenses. I mean, even the other teams he was talking about. He's talking about the Chiefs and the Saints.
Yes, exactly.
Look at all the coaches that he's talking about. He's talking about Sean McVay, Andy Reid, Sean Payton, Matt LaFleur, all of the most innovative and creative play callers in the NFL. That's not a coincidence, because I think he's come to a point in his career where I'm more than a wide receiver. I need the ball in as many ways as I can.
Let me go make plays.
Let me go make plays. Give it to me on a screen. Give it to me on an end around. Put me in the backfield. Give me a little shovel pass to the line of scrimmage, which all of these quarterbacks and head coaches will do. He just happened to pick the one that resides in LA, and it's not a bad choice, man. That's not a bad choice.
I'd love to live in LA too.
I'd love to. The Rams host the Super Bowl, so we saw the Bucs do it last year. Let's see. There's an opportunity. Last thing I want to get into, man, and I've been saying this because I'm a Buccaneers fan, world champions. And I've watched yet another NFC contender get better. The Cardinals went and got Zach Ertz and just made their offense that more lethal. Now the Rams get not only Odell Beckham Jr., but also Von Miller. We talked about it at the top of the video. I got to ask you this question when we ride out. Is this a super team in the NFL? I don't think I've ever seen a super team in the NFL. This is pretty close to a super team as we got in the NFL right now, man. And it's like, is that a real thing, or am I just salty as a Buccaneers fan who's trying to defend my title?
I don't think they're a super team, because there's still some holes. Like the offensive line's not great, right? The linebackers.
It don't need to be though.
But it's close. I think they're probably. Here's my thing: is when we're talking about like healthy Tampa might still be better than the Rams, right?
We are
like a lot of Tampa's season has been played with like CB 4 and 5. And so when we talked about, the Bucs bringing in 22 of 22 starters last year, that's to me a closer recognition of a quote unquote super team, is to be able that continuity of winning the Super Bowl and then literally bringing it 100% all back together. I think that would be more of an example. But other than that, maybe the dynasty Patriots, who were just constantly like the number one defense, and then you had Tom Brady and a great offensive line. Like that's also just kind of a. We talk about a super team winning
but those teams took what they had, like where the sum was greater than their parts. Like they took everything they had and elevated it. They didn't pluck superstar names from other teams. Right. That's a super team. You pluck superstar names.
Maybe the Rams, but
I'm salty. I know I'm salty about it. But great video. My guy, Matt Valdovinos at MV Scouting on Twitter. Go follow him and get up on all his content, man, because this man knows what he's talking about, especially when it comes to the big men dominating the trenches. He got the Women Belong in Sports sweatshirt on, too. So he's about it. But for my guy, I'm James Jackson. Please go and subscribe to the Straight Facts YouTube channel and follow us on social media at straightfacts_pod for all of our content, man. Shout out up on Game Network and LeVar Arrington, Plexico Burris, and TJ Hushmanzada. But for my guys, we'll catch you next time.